And welcome back to Coming Out Stories Meet the Parents. This series, we've turned the tables a bit and we're hearing from parents of LGBT people. I'm your host, Emma Goswell, and this podcast is brought to you from What Goes On Media. It's time for you to meet Bruce, and this is possibly the most extraordinary change of opinion I have ever come across. Can you imagine going from being a Pentecostal minister who was disgusted by the sight of a gay pride parade on TV to being someone who now attends gay prides wearing a God Loves Gays t-shirt? Because that is what happened. I started by asking Bruce what he used to think about homosexuality and gay people.
Oh, well, that's very important to ask. I'm glad you started with that, because understanding the context, I think, helps you see why I made such a mess of it. So at the time that my son Richard came out to me, it was at the turn of the century. Mm-hmm. And he was 18 then.
Gosh, we're going back over 20 years there. Yeah, a bit more than that. So, and I was 50 at the time, but I was very much involved in a fundamentalist Christian church. It was an Assemblies of God church, which is one of the Pentecostal denominations. And they're very fundamentalist in their view. Sex is between a man and a woman in marriage for life, and anything else is taboo. It will send you to hell. Well, I mean, you say very involved. You were actually a pastor. You were actually preaching.
I was leading a church in Bristol. Yes. Yeah. Yes. So it was not just my job. It was my identity. Yeah. And you'll realize in a church like that, it's kind of a bubble. And you all your friends there, your acquaintances, the people you meet, you kind of live in this little subculture, and you actually don't take so much notice of what other people say, because that's the world, and that's the influences trying to pull you away from the truth. And it's hard for someone who's not been in it to imagine what it's like. It was loving. We were a close family. My wife Janet and I have 5 children. And at that time, they were all at home or just going off to university or just had, a year. They were around that age. We were close family. 50 years old, I thought I was set. I was going the way and this was good. And life was good. We enjoyed it.
And I guess at 50 years old, you pretty much assume you know what life's about, don't you? And you sussed it all by then.
It. We'd had some changes earlier on and gone from an even more fundamentalist church. I won't get into that. But we thought we'd been liberated. But it was very much, I had accepted all the teachings as a package.
Yeah, so to be clear, homosexuality was a sin. It was a bad thing.
Yes, yeah. And people bashed people over the head with the Bible verses on that. And to be fair, there's nothing really in the Bible that says, hey, it's great to be gay. It doesn't come, it gets a bad press in the book.
Well, it does, but it doesn't actually talk about it that much, does it? It doesn't talk much about it.
Certainly any idea of marriage between two people who love one another and want to be faithful and be good, care for one another, there was no concept of that. It was seen more as an abusive thing.
No, and 20 years ago that didn't exist in this country.
No, that's it. No, that's it. So I was kind of happy in my bubble, but the thing was, I had no idea that our middle son, Richard, was gay. And so during the 90s, he was coming into his teens and moving up to the end when he was about ready to go to university at the turn of the century. He was going through hell on earth, really, because if you can imagine it, he's at school and all his mates are talking about girls and he realizes he doesn't connect with that. He actually has feelings for some of the boys. And he has to keep that really quiet because the word gay was an epithet. It was a curse word and everything. And young gay lads were beaten up.
And was he going to the same church that you were preaching at? Was he part of that?
Yeah, they were all. We all scrubbed up well and turned up on Sunday morning. And we were like, I took pride in being the model family, Oh, anyway, so I had no idea that he couldn't come home and find support and solace. He came home and it was worse because it wasn't like, I don't think I ever preached on it. It was just understood, this is the way Adam and Eve, God made Adam and Eve. And but he'd been at youth camps and so on where they were really heavy on it.
Oh, really?
And he even applied earlier to go on a youth mission thing. And he got the application paper, and on it said something about, like, do you suffer from same-sex attraction? And as soon as he read that, he knew that he couldn't go on it. And so he told us, I'm not interested in that, I don't think. And we were kind of disappointed because a lot of the children did do these little things. So they'd go abroad and had a great time. So he didn't do that. But we had no idea he was crying himself to sleep at night, that he was suffering from depression. He actually thought the school would have rejected him, which a lot of his friends would. The family would. The church would, and God would. I mean, that's how he saw it. Can you imagine that you feel you're totally unacceptable?
That is a lot to have on your shoulders, isn't it? Just the thought of your family rejecting you, but when you add in all of those things, in his mind, his life would have been over. He wouldn't have had any of those support networks. That was his worst case scenario. That was his fear.
Yeah. And it was toxic. And, even now, talking about it, I feel so upset that we abused him. We were trying to be loving parents, and we had no idea that we were abusing him, because he said to his mum, you'd never have guessed. I just hid away in my bedroom and played music,
I mean, you're getting emotional about it, and I can understand why, because I know from reading some of the stuff you've written as well, because of all this, there's a lot of guilt that you hold.
Oh, absolutely. And I've had to deal with that now. And I tell you, I mean, it's been a lifesaver for me to actually come out of this, what I was in, and to be, I don't know, free to love anyone and love everyone on the basis of just we're all human beings together, and not think of them and us anymore.
And how on earth have you done that? Because, Bruce, your story is extraordinary. You have done an entire 180 from being an evangelical Christian who believes that homosexuality is a sin to loving your gay son and to now helping other parents of LGBT people. How on earth did you do that?
Well, it wasn't down to me at all. I must say, and this is the truth, I don't know how anyone would explain it, but I think I was just sitting in my armchair and these words came into my head: Richard is gay, God is good. And it was like a grenade going up underneath me. Instantly, I was totally in conflict, because my head said, that's crazy. He's the nicest member of your family. He's such a lovely, gentle, caring boy. He's a doctor now,
wow.
and very happily married with his husband, and going on. And tells us that he's not suffering scars from the way we treated him. But, there was my mindset, this cannot be true. But somehow in my heart of hearts, it was a voice I knew was right. And I couldn't marry the two things together. And then another conflict arose as soon as I was still struggling with that. But then I realized very selfishly, well, what would this mean to me in the church? Because I had friends in the ministry who had kicked their sons out because they were gay.
Really?
And
you'd supported that, I guess, or just that was just the way it was.
Yes, I thought, well, we're standing up for righteousness or whatever. So I thought, I've got to either turn against him in one way or another, or I've got to leave. I cannot go on leading a church because there was no one to talk to. I didn't want to. You don't stand up and run the conversation and say anything. I couldn't talk to my wife yet because I hadn't resolved it all in my head. I didn't want to go to Richard and say, hey, by the way, Rex, are you gay? I thought, no, you'll never talk to me again.
So weirdly, it was just like a voice that had come to you in your head, but there must have been signs. There must have been telltale signs that he was, you mentioned that he was depressed. You knew that he was struggling with something.
Yeah, I think there were things, but I wasn't free to receive them at the time. So, maybe I was just picking up on things subliminally or whatever. I don't know. But I did know that it set me on this journey. And then I had to think through, right, what do I really believe about? And I realized I'd never looked into it. It was just something I accepted in the package. So that led to about 6 months, really, of intensive looking into everything. The internet was brilliant because you can see the arguments both sides. Well, at the beginning, you kind of think, yeah, that's right, when you listen to them. And then you listen to the next one. Oh, no, that's right. And it's absolute confusion. But over a period of time, the mist cleared and I realized I'd been told a pack of lies. And it was not true, any of it, that being gay, lesbian, bi, certainly trans, is not a choice that someone, I think I'll do that. Who would? And that was a fundamental thing to realise.
And how did that feel then, to have, signed up to this institution that essentially had lied to you for decades, for most of your life?
Well, 50, I didn't need that. But
that's late for a midlife crisis even, isn't it?
Yeah, I'd already had a midlife crisis at 40, but that's another story. Over a period of time, I realised I was going to have to resign from the ministry and leave the church because I just didn't fit in. Suddenly, I was realising that it's not about what you believe and getting all these facts right and everything. It's all about love. There's nothing more. It's simple that we are to love one another and care for one another. And I mean, not support them in doing wrong, but love them. I did say to my son one time towards the end, when I was beginning to come clear, look, I think I know what you're going through, but you can always talk to me, And he said, no, I'm fine, because he wasn't ready to talk still. But he then went away to do some service in preparation for going to Manchester to study, and he went to look after a young lad who was seriously ill and dying. And when he came back, he came straight up to me and said, "Dad, I'm gay." And at that time, by the grace of God, I think I was able to hug him and say, "It's okay, I know," And
wow. And were you the first person that he told, do you think?
Yeah. It could have been so different, couldn't it? I've talked to a young lad who told me how night after night he used to go on his bicycle out to a bridge over the motorway, sit on the bridge and pluck up courage to jump because his Christian family thought it was an abomination to be gay. He didn't, and he's reconciled to his family now. And I've talked to him and I've talked to his family. It's wonderful. But it's not always that happy, the ending.
So do you know if he'd actually tried talking to his friends at university or?
Oh, by the time he went to university, he did, yes. Yeah.
He had.
But not at school, really.
No, but you were the first person in the family that he wanted to tell then.
Yes, which is wonderful, isn't it? Because, I then said, shall we go up and tell Mum? And that was, it was like a total bolt out of the blue for her, but she came round much quicker than I did, and I hopefully I was there to help her in that. So it was very, very traumatic. I got a job with the local council.
But how did that conversation go? You had to then come out as being a parent of a gay child to your church, your congregation. You had to turn around to them and say, everything that I've been preaching and everything that you all stand for, I no longer agree with. I mean, that's not an easy conversation to have, Bruce.
Well, probably I should have done that, but actually I quietly slipped out. Right. And first of all, resigned from the ministry because I was very stressed anyway, and situations were changing within the church. They kind of worked quite well from that point of view. What I think is I'm not there to actually convince people that they're wrong. I find people, if they're not ready for it, they just get angry. And I don't need to be fighting people. I need to say what the truth is as far as I know it, to the best of my ability. But if other people see differently, I don't see them as my enemies at all, because I've been there,
But you can also see how potentially damaging it can be. You've just mentioned a young lad who, contemplated suicide on a regular basis. And unfortunately it happens. And people do get thrown out of their homes because of not just Christianity, other religions as well. I've spoken to people who've been thrown out of their home, and it's so damaging and so psychologically
Absolutely,
damaging.
Which is why I'm heavily involved with FLAG. We're very much there to support parents and carers of young LGBT people. I'm one of the people in FLAG who go and give talks to organisations and groups and whatever, and I love to do that. Because a frustrated preacher, no one wants to hear me now, so I can talk about FLAG.
You've got a very different congregation now.
Yeah. I'm a healthier one, but I won't go into that. Yeah. But also, Janet, my wife, and I help lead a private Facebook group called Diverse Church Parents.
Okay.
And that's for Christian parents of LGBT people who just joined the Facebook group to support one another. And we've got over 160 members there, and it's growing all the time. We just share our stories and encourage and support one another. So that's where I feel I can particularly be of help. If Christians want to know, I can show them where they're wrong. But if they don't want to know, they just get angry with me.
Do they?
Yes.
Have you had a few parents shouting at you?
Yeah, but they only join the group if they really want to know. We talk to them before we let them in because it's a safe place for them.
See, one of the big misconceptions, I think, from straight people who do not understand what it means to be gay is that it's a choice. And I think that's sometimes something that gets misconstrued and tied up with religion. That people are choosing a sinful lifestyle or, they're choosing to do this to, reject God. Whereas you now know, don't you? Nobody chooses this. This is the way we're born.
No.
And I guess that's something that you're telling parents, is it? That, that's a fundamental bridge to understanding, presumably.
Yeah. And once they realise that, that's sort of like the first step onto their recovery, really. Because then they have to come to terms with, they're not at fault. Well, what's going on then? And finding out. And once they begin to meet more people, because I never thought I knew any gay or trans people. Mind you, they kept clear of me. So.
Yeah, but the thing is, you like you said, you admitted you were in a bubble. Clearly, wherever you are. You live in Bristol, for God's sake. Yeah. There are plenty of LGBT people in Bristol. There are everywhere. We are everywhere. Yeah. But you've just been blinkered, haven't you?
Yes, absolutely. But now I'm, I said to me, it's very much like I lived in a world that was black and white. Now it's rainbow coloured. It's wonderful. We've got the most wonderful trans friends, and who are so. There's a couple that are so out there and wonderful, and others who are really quite introvert and are struggling with things. But we're just the same. We're all like that.
But they've all enriched your lives, I'm sure.
Yeah.
It was interesting as well to read about how you remember years ago seeing images of a gay pride parade and being physically revulsed and, disgusted by it. And do you now go to prides? Do you now take part?
Oh, yeah. Yes. Well, not during COVID very much. It's very good. But we always tried to go to Bristol Pride, Western Pride, London Pride. But in FLAG, we got different groups around the country, and they'll invite us up to their prides as well. So I'm retired, so I can do that. And we just love it. I mean, it's wonderful. I mean, some of the youngsters come up and hug us because we've got stuff on that, the proud parent on our shirts, and they say to my wife, "Can you hug me? Because my mum won't."
That breaks my heart, Bruce.
Doesn't it? Yes.
So there's still a lot of work to do, isn't there? There are still so many parents out there believing the stuff that's in the Bible or in the Quran or in other texts.
Yes.
And interpreting it in such a way that homosexuality is bad. But you've learned to reinterpret it because you're still a man of God, are you? Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I have a faith, but it's totally different from what I was in. That's wonderful. Yeah. It's a source of strength, not the source of stress.
Goodness. But there you go. It just shows that there is a way, isn't there? Because, surely, I'm personally not a believer, but surely the thing about religion is it should preach love and it should preach tolerance.
Absolutely.
And it should preach, loving your fellow human beings. And I don't know why it gets so contorted and misconstrued all the time.
No. Well, I believe we're all rewarded, not because we will all receive a reward. Every single person on earth but not because they've learnt the scriptures or they do this or they go to church on Sunday. It's how much you've loved with what you've been given. And I think some of us I've been given an awful lot, and I think I'm expected to keep giving back. And other people have had such a life of being rejected and hurt. If we're given little and just do a bit, we'll get a bigger reward than me, who's made a cock up of all the stuff I've been given. So I'm trying to catch up now.
Well, God, you really have repented, haven't you, and changed your ways?
Yeah, oh yeah, because I feel more at home with atheists who are loving than Christians who are judging.
It's such an important message, isn't it? And also the other thing that you mentioned earlier, and this is important to dwell on, is it's about love. And I think straight people who don't understand always focus on the sex aspect, don't they? Particularly when it comes to gay men, and it's something to be feared and to be scared of. But actually, why be so obsessed with someone else's sex life? It's not any of your business, is it? It's actually about love, isn't it?
Totally, yeah. I see a young couple walking down the road, hand in hand, newly married. I think, lovely. But I used to see if I had two men walking hand in hand. Well, you don't, apart from prides. I would have thought, whoa, sex. That's just the way the mind goes. So I've had to unlearn the way I think, because I've had to look back and saying, I was living a life thinking I was doing it right, but I was really making hell for one of my children. How could I have not done that? Yeah. And the only thing I can come up with now is I should have proven everything and not just accept a package of what people tell me and then think, yeah, I can tell that to people, because words can be so painful. I guess I'm more skeptical now as older, but try not to be cynical.
Healthy. But I'm sure you've realised now there are lots of LGBT people with faith and in the church. I know.
Oh, yeah.
I know friends who are gay vicars and, work for the Church of England.
Absolutely.
They are out there.
Yeah. Oh, a lot of them are my friends. But we go to a wonderful group in London called 223 Network, which is run by a group of 12 LGBT people. And we go to their church services about 3 or 4 times a year. And it's just lovely, because a lot of these Christian people aren't welcome in their own church. And it's just sad for them.
And can I ask how Richard's siblings took it? Because I know you mentioned at the start he's one of 5.
Yeah, well, the older 2 found it very difficult because I guess when they were younger, we were much more strict and fundamentalist. The younger 2, just a few years difference, things were changing in society an awful lot. They found it a lot easier. Well, he wrote them a letter, and his youngest sister read the letter and knew that there was something wrong, thinking he's either got cancer or he's gay. God, I hope he's gay.
Well, of the 2, it's a lot better, isn't it? Let me tell you.
Yeah, but others took a longer time to come round. And one is still, we're very close still, but he's not really happy with it. He thinks it's wrong, but we don't let it come between us.
Yeah, and that's unusual, isn't it? Because he must see how you and his mother totally accept and love Richard and have, as I said, gone 180 on your views on what you thought. So
yeah, but he's on a journey and he's mellowed.
So, look how much Richard has changed all of your lives.
Oh, yes, so much. Yes, he's taken us out of where we were, a very comfortable little bubble, mind, and blown it apart. But we've come back into the real world, and we've met people we've never we had the opportunity to go to a conference in Kiev for parents and meet some of the Russian mums whose sons have been harassed and taken into custody by the secret police, and they've been interviewed for hours in Russia just because they have a gay son, and you realise how. We've come a long way in this country, and there were people from lots of countries. Eastern Europe was
it's terrifying, isn't it? Though what was taken, they were putting them in camps, weren't they? It's absolutely terrifying. And I don't even know what's happened with that. I don't know if that's still going on.
Terrible. Absolutely. So we've met the most wonderful people, and one of his sisters who really was distressed originally when he came out to them, unfortunately had a problem of her own in her own marriage and went to stay and live with him for a while because she knew he was such a caring, compassionate person. Yeah. She met all his friends, gay and straight and whatever, and one of them, she said, "Oh, Richard, he's for you." And they're now married.
Oh! So she played Cupid.
Yeah. And so it's a happy ending to this story.
Oh, and tell me about the wedding day, because that must be such a proud moment for a parent. But to have...
Oh, yeah, it was proud, but...
To have your first same-sex wedding in your family must have been something else.
Okay, I must say, though, it was proud but traumatic, because on the morning of the wedding, my wife was seriously ill. I mean, she was writhing in pain. I had to rush her to a hospital, and she had her gallbladder taken out.
Oh, gosh.
So she missed the wedding.
Oh, no!
I missed the wedding, but I got to the reception and everything. It was lovely. But everyone rallied round. It worked out well. So it's a historic moment in our family.
Oh, my word.
But yes, it was a wonderfully proud moment. Some of the people who came weren't really sure about it, but they wrote things afterwards like, "Well, this was the most wonderful occasion, and you were all so gracious," and it was great. It was a good advertisement of what true love is like.
Oh, I love that. And finally, Bruce, some words of wisdom, some words of advice, maybe for other parents who are, grappling with their own gods or their conversations with gods, or been caught up in, particularly those sort of parents who are really, really struggling to come to terms with a child who might be gay or might be trans.
Yeah, well, I would say, like I was saying before, question everything. You might have an emotional reaction, and it's something that is not instinctive. We've learnt to react emotionally to things because we respond to our culture. And if you're in a homophobic environment, you will think that. Like in the past, if there's something came on, a gay comedian on the television, we'd say, switch that off. And we'd react emotionally. So, and that took longer for me to change, to be honest, than understanding that it was fine to be gay,
Yeah, and your children are picking up on those signals, all those sort of things that you did.
Absolutely.
Any sort of tutting at gay kissing or holding hands or turning off of TV channels, kids pick up on that.
And understand that loving is the rule. Love is the key. That's your guide in life. If you think it's loving to be abusive to someone for the sake of something you read in a book somewhere, look into that, because that cannot be right. I mean, it's basic common sense. And another thing is keep talking. We made mistakes on that. After Richard came out to us, I think very soon afterwards, he went off to Manchester and everything. And it was kind of like, it was such an upheaval. We kind of all were licking our wounds for a while. But keep talking, because I needed to learn an awful lot from him. And I'm still learning for people, particularly now, families who have trans youngsters. There's so much to learn. But be honest. It's nothing wrong with saying to your youngster, "Whoa, this is really an awful lot for me to take on board. Give me a bit of space here," and not try to pretend, "Oh, that's okay," when really you're, inside, no. What about that white wedding I planned? And all the things that go through your mind. Just to be real is so important.
I think that was really important, what you said about listening. You have to accept sometimes as a parent that you don't know everything, and your child can teach you.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not a parent, but I know that I've learned so much from young people about, things are changing for the better.
And it's a role reversal.
Yeah.
Because we were the ones always teaching them, and now I'm learning from them. I mean, I'm learning loads of things, and now technically they help me do with my smartphone and everything. But learning about culture and life and what's going on now. The world's a bigger place than just my little bit of it. There's so much to learn there. And also now speak out. Be proactive. Well, you can't do that straight away because you're processing so much in your mind. But now I like to start setting the agenda because people react to me then rather than me having to react to them. But that's further down the line when you feel able.
Bruce, you are an absolute tonic. It's just been so wonderful to talk to you. What do we do to make you head of the church? I think you'd be brilliant.
I don't know. I don't want to be involved in any institution at all. I'm very happy. But I'm happy to talk to anybody, anywhere, anytime, because I love to do it. But they've got to be wanting it. Otherwise, I don't try. Because their Christian parents particularly are screwed up.
Yeah. A huge thank you to Bruce. I just really wish that all parents who have turned away from their LGBT child because of their faith can listen to that interview. He's so right, isn't he? It's all about love. If you want more information about the church he's now part of, please go to diversechurch.website. And if you want more information about FLAG, who help support parents of LGBT plus children across the UK, just go to fflag.org.uk. That's FFlag, all one word. Right, I've now got something very important to ask you. It may surprise you to hear that this has been a passion project of mine and producer Sam's for over 3 years now. We did it because we wanted to share inspiring stories to help people, and we've absolutely loved doing that. It has meant, though, we've not just worked hard for free, we've also ploughed our own money into it. And it's now got to the stage where we need to get a sponsor or advertisers to cover costs. We're not asking you for money, don't worry, unless, of course, you are from a company with a budget. But we'd just love to collect your opinions on the podcast so we can then approach advertisers. So, if you've loved listening, if it's helped you, or maybe if it's helped your relationship with others, we'd love to know. Please tell us more by dropping us a line via our website. Just go to comingoutStoriesPodcast.com and click on Get in Touch. That's comingoutStoriesPodcast.com. Tell us why you think it's an important podcast, and we can hopefully carry on bringing you inspiring stories for a long time yet. Right, back to business though. Next episode, you'll hear from Marilyn, who found out that her son and daughter were both gay in one phone call. And she told me she failed to pick up on some fairly obvious signs before that.
Well, they both went to Brighton Uni, for example, and they obviously chose that. At the time, I didn't realise because they, knew that Brighton, like Manchester, was where you could, be part of the gay community and not feel as alienated as you would if you'd, gone somewhere else. But they, when they came home, they'd go to Canal Street and so on. But I'd go as well because, it was great fun. Cheap booze, the food. I didn't really think anything of it.